Okay, so we're back on. We've just had our first technical glitch in true broadcasting style. Thank you to a couple of people who emailed us very quickly to tell us there was a problem with the sound. So I'm going to start again. So welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Hopefully we've got some prospective students who are joining us this evening. My name is Billy Downey. I'm head teacher at Streetly Academy. I've got my senior team here to be able to take your questions for the evening. On my right, introducing himself for the second time this evening.
Good evening everyone, I'm Mr Hughes and I'm responsible for curriculum and timetables and basically the subjects that students take through their time here at Streetly.
Okay, thank you Mr Hughes. And on my left?
I'm Mrs Triptree. I'm in charge of intervention and progress and achievement. I also line manage SEND, so if you've got any questions relating to any support, not just SEND but across the whole school, I'm happy to help.
And finally Mr Harris on the far left.
Good evening everyone, I'm Mr Harris. I look after the pastoral care in the school, so any questions regarding to conduct, behaviours, safeguarding issues, then please they'll be directed to myself. Thank you.
Okay, so if you've got any questions this evening, you can email them in. Thank you to people who told us about the sound. We've managed to get that sorted. So our email address is openevening2020@thestreetlyacademy.co.uk, and really do throw anything at us. We're more than happy to try and answer everything that you throw at us this evening. Hopefully you've had a chance to either have a look around the site beforehand. If you don't, there's a massive information in our virtual school, so you can click around the map. You can look into all of the rooms. If you look up to, and I can't remember if it's to my right or to my left, but there is the head teacher's address, which is my presentation about how we work at Streetly. And then if you go into any of the rooms, if you look down on the bottom left, you will see that it lets you know what's in each of the rooms. So it says what's here. So there's some videos, there's some documentation, there's some images that you can peruse and have a look at, as well as a number of things that would be in this room. You're actually in the hall at the moment, and you'll get a chance to look at some of our videos and video tours and one of our events and some of our events. So we're going to start taking our questions, and our first question is, we're really interested in the Streetly Academy, particularly as a former Streetly pupil myself, but I'm just wondering, do we have any chance of actually being accepted coming from Aldridge? So that gives me an opportunity to just talk a little bit about our admissions criteria. It is published on our website and it is published with Walsall Local Authority also. But our admissions criteria basically goes in the direction of first access to places within the school goes to siblings. Those are siblings that are in years 7 to 10. If they're in 11 and they would be in the sixth form, we obviously don't know whether they would be joining the sixth form. So it's siblings, so if you've got a brother or sister in years 7 to 10. Then the next criteria is students with education healthcare plans, SEN, children who have Streetly named as a school on their plan, as well as students who are looked after or in public care. We then move down, we have a staff criteria, which is staff who have worked in the school for over 2 years, do have the ability to make an application for their child. And we've been very lucky with that one in a sense, because it has helped us attract staff. And we now have 18 students in the school, 4 in the current year 7 in fact, whose parents, and I think it's a great indictment's the wrong word, a great example of the work that we do within the school. So then as we head down, we go to our feeder primary schools, and we have 3 feeder primary schools. They are Lindens, Blackwood and Manor. But the feeder primary school only applies if you live within 2.5 miles. So if you live within 2.5 miles and you attend one of those 3 schools, then you would be allocated a place. If you attend one of those schools and you live further than 2.5 miles, you then join the final criteria, which is distance criteria. And distance criteria basically is for all the rest of the places that are left. They are allocated by the local authority, and then the 243rd place away will be the last place that's offered. In the last 2 years, we have offered 260 places into year 7, and our intention is to do that again in the next academic year. So the 260th place, the furthest away that would be. Now, to give you an indication of that normally in recent years has sat between 1 and 1.5, 1.6 miles. So it isn't really that far. So to go back to the question, which was if I live in Aldridge, it depends really how far away you are and which primary schools you attend. It doesn't mean you have no chance, and there is also the opportunity to appeal for places. So that's just a general summary of our admissions criteria, and I hope it answers the question regarding family living in Aldridge. Okay, so moving on to our next question. This one came in earlier today from Dave, which is how many GCSEs are usually taken? So that's probably Mr. Hughes.
At the moment, we have every student in Year 10 will take 9 GCSEs. That's their core subjects and 4 option subjects, which they choose in Year 9 as option subjects. Until that point, we in Key Stage 3, though, we are dedicated to a broad and balanced curriculum. So students will take all the core subjects, Maths, English, Science and PE, and they'll also take a number of art subjects and DT as well. And we're committed to that, and we don't start GCSEs until Year 10. So at the moment, they take the core subjects for GCSE plus 4 option subjects.
Okay, that pretty much answers Dave's question. If there are any if you want to expand on any of those, of course, just send your questions in open evening 2020 at thestreetlyacademy.co.uk. Next question. Hi, my son is interested in attending your school. He has an EHCP plan. It looks like you have a good SEND department, and I would like to know more. So I'm going to hand over to Streetly.
So we do have a very good SEND department. We have 18 teaching assistants who have a variety of specialities, and they're broken up into the 4 needs that the SEND department links to. So we have specialists on dyslexia, we have ADHD, ASD, physical disabilities, and the team is led by our Senko, Mrs. Wiley, and her assistant Senko, Mrs. Frankham. I know normally that we get a lot of transition work with our Year 6 students, especially in the summer term, and they're always available to answer any questions. But there is a broad variety of specialities within that department, and they do a lot of focused work in small groups and also obviously within the lessons.
Just picking up on that, so some of these questions you can hear more and see more about the SEN department if you visit them on the tour. You can either pick them from the areas of the school, and there's a presentation in there from our special needs and disability coordinator, Mrs. Wiley. So there is some more information in there. And of course, if you want to contact us, somebody can give you a call if you've got any particular questions. Next one's an interesting question. This is also from Dave, actually. Why does the library seem so small? It's an interesting thing. A few years ago, we converted our library into our study support centre. And in doing so, it coincided with a point at which libraries were becoming more like resource centres, really, where there'd be IT in there, there'd be computers that students could use, study areas and so on. When we made the decision, and it's probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, we moved to one-to-one devices, electronic devices. Obviously, the need for students to access an IT device was no longer needed. And all of the resources that came with that included that when we had students using Chromebooks, they would also have the ability to access ebooks, online resources, as well as all the masses of things that we have which are IT focused. We then realised that we really do still have students who physically want to have access to a book. So what we have done is, rather than a resource centre with a library, is we have a concentration of all of our books in that area, as well as our library, I've forgotten the name of our library resources. Literacy Corners, which exist around the school in the social spaces where the students go, where they can borrow a book, or they can read in their form room or wherever it may be. So we've got literacy happening all around the school. And the library, as you see it on the tour, is actually part of an extended classroom, so it goes on and doubles in that side. And actually, we'd only just done this before we went into lockdown, and we'd hoped that we'd have things like the book club happening in there. But sadly, those sorts of activities came to a little bit to an end with the lockdown, but we are exploring ways in which we are going to be able to do those things moving forward. So I accept it is a small library, but there are lots of strategies that sit around that to encourage literacy within the school, not just within subjects, but also recreationally. Okay. Next question, I think this is probably going to be one for Mr. Harris, which is, will it be scary for Year 7 starters? How long does it generally take for Year 7 students to settle in and feel comfortable?
Yeah, just the first part of that question, will it be scary for Year 7 starters? I think naturally it is an anxious time for any student coming to a secondary school, and also for the parents of the students coming to secondary school. So a long time before Year 7s arrive, we start liaising with our primary schools. We have meetings with the primary schools to find out all the background information about your son, daughter, so we can prepare the best package that we possibly can for when they walk through our doors on that first day in September. Within our school day, from 8:45 to 9:20, we do have the life curriculum, and the first section of that life curriculum for Year 7 is all about the transition through from primary school and settling into secondary school. So we'll go through all different techniques of how to manage their emotions, how to deal with going from a small school to a much, much larger school. So we will put a lot of time and effort into there. And it will also allow us to pick up any specific students who have particular anxieties about school. So from the information that we receive, we will offer a time where people can come in and visit, especially if we feel that people have got specific needs, and you may need a little bit of a one-to-one session where you can have a little guided tour of the school, just to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. Please have a look at the life curriculum section on the virtual tour. It will explain quite a lot of the stuff that we do during transition. There is also a transition portal that's still set up on our website for the current Year 7. If you go onto that, it will give you a little indication, answer some of the frequently asked questions that we get regarding transition through from Year 6 to Year 7.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just going to pick up the Year 7 thing. My daughter herself started Year 7 this year at her school where I live in Lichfield. But and it is an anxious time, and I always thought, yeah, we'll breeze through it. I think we were all very anxious, and she was. I often think the fear of it is far worse than actually once they're there and they get home after the first day and they've had a brilliant time and they've enjoyed it. And we've really put a lot of effort this year, not only into our transition online, and if you have a look at our transition portal on our website where we did video welcomes, we ran live video meetings like this for all of our students who were joining us in Year 7, a mass of things that everything that we could possibly do. We actually wanted to have the kids in. That was sort of blocked by, at the time, the primary schools had their own bubbles and they wouldn't allow the students to come here and then go back to those bubbles. So we didn't want to compromise our parents for that one. But hopefully, fingers crossed, by July 2021, we will be through this and we'll have a normal transition where we can get the students into school. And those particularly vulnerable ones, we'll make sure we get those in anyway. Okay, our next question is quite a long one. We are awaiting an SEN screening, but I've been told it could be 18 months away due to COVID-19. Would we be considered without an SEN plan? It is more than likely my son will have a diagnosis at the end of screening, albeit a way off. We live in Great Barr, current primary school is Greenmone Year 6. So, you pick that up?
Yes, I understand the whole process, to be fair, whether, without COVID, for a plan to be put in place can be a long process. But yes, absolutely, he would be considered. We have got students from Greenhome, we have got students living in Great Barr. So therefore, if there's a comment box on the application form, I would maybe put that in so that they can, so that there's a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, we couldn't promise that it would be regarded as a plan at that point, and I know that's possibly not what this parent would want to hear. Because we can't allocate places with something that isn't yet formally accepted and accredited. So if an EHCP is not yet done and the school isn't yet named, of course we could have other parents that would say, well, I think my child may qualify for an education healthcare plan, but we can't issue those places. Now, what could happen in those instances is a place could be allocated and then the EHCP would be done after that, maybe in between when they would be starting at Streetly, and you could then appeal, and it would put your case up very high up in terms of our waiting list. So a student with an EHCP, which even if it arrived later, an appeal may be more likely to be successful. Although that said, the appeals process is totally independent of the school. It's up to the panel that does it. Okay, are we ready for our next question? I'm just waiting for it to come up. Something to do with the live tour. Hi, we are online with your live tour. What makes you different from another school with your sports? I think I should answer that one. I mean, possibly, I'm surrounded by PE teachers here, actually. All three of these guys are former PE teachers. But one of the things I will say is when I arrived at this school in 2010, I was very clear that sport and its values, and I'll let Mr. Hughes talk about the values, the pride values in a moment, but sport and physical activity is something which drives us as a school. We genuinely believe that we are one of the very, very few, if not the only school in the country which has a commitment to daily physical activity. So, for example, our students will walk or run 2 days a week. They will do PE 2 days a week, and then they will do dance. Now, that's been a little bit scuppered this year because both of our dance teachers are on maternity leave. But our commitment is there as we go forward to reintroduce that as soon as we can when staffing allows. Now, that's fairly unique. Lots of schools will tell you they have a commitment to physical activity and sport. 2 hours of PE in this school is sacrosanct. It will never go. It will always be there because I absolutely believe that young people who are physically active, who engage, and I believe in sport as well because I believe that brings qualities to young people, but those people are more likely to be successful, more likely to be academically successful, more likely to engage with their studies, and of course their mental well-being and their mental health is looked after when we are physically active. The way that oxygen moves around the body, the way our neurotransmitters works, there's a multitude of studies that say that that helps us to be better. And so what we've done is we've built a school around sport. It doesn't mean that if you're not sporty that this isn't a school that you can be happy in, because what we also value is the values of sport, which sit in our pride values. So the guy that sort of runs all of that, and do watch our video, the making of the Pride Awards, because that's all about our values. But I'll just hand over to Mr. Hughes, who will talk a little bit about what the pride values are and how they sit as our values across the school.
Thank you, sir. Really, our pride in all we do is our ethos, our strapline. And we try and centre everything we do in our curriculum and design it around our pride ethos. And pride is based on the Olympic and Paralympic values. And it's almost a legacy from when we were a sports college. And we still function as we did as a sports college initially. And the pride values are personal excellence, and that's what everyone's trying to achieve throughout their school life. Respect and friendship, which obviously these are the values that we think epitomise everything we want our young people to be. We want them to be inspired, and that's the inspiration. We want them to be inspired in the curriculum. We want them to be inspired by trips and visits and experiences they might not get anywhere else. Determination and courage, that's the next ethos, part of the ethos, and that is we want students to try, and we think that's really important in any circumstance, and if they fail, they try and try again. And finally is equality, and equality, obviously we want to treat everybody with the same respect regardless of their background or ethnicity or anything, whatever it is. And that is really the values that we get from sport. One thing that Mr. Downey didn't mention is our commitment to extracurricular activities. Obviously at the moment they're a little bit limited, but that really sits at the very heart of our sporting ethos as well. It's not all about winning, although it is very nice to win, and we do very, very, very well in local and national competitions. But our extensive extracurricular opportunities are what sets us apart from other schools with regards to sport. In sixth form, we have after Wednesday afternoons completely dedicated to our 2 sports academies. We have a football academy in association with West Bromwich Albion, and we have our netball academy, which is run with 7 Stars netball team, and that is open to all of our sixth form students and for years 12 and 13. So that's just another example of our commitment to sport.
Okay, next question. How do Streetly GCSE results compare to national results? And this is something that everybody can look up. You would know if you looked at how we perform in terms of outcomes. We sit round about sort of national average, in fact. For things like maths and English, we probably sit slightly just above at the moment in terms of those outcomes. Now, obviously, the thing I'll say about that is we are absolutely a comprehensive, non-selective school. And so when we are comparing schools that are like for like, you have to look at their policy for accepting students with special educational needs, which is something we actively encourage, where sometimes that can be discouraged in some schools. You have to look at the intake of the school. So we sit normally around about 25 to 30% of our students, which is slightly almost around the national average for students who are eligible for pupil premium funding from disadvantaged families. But so when we put that all into context, now one of the interesting one is most recently there has been an emphasis on something called Progress 8, and that's been an area where we haven't performed well. Our Progress 8 figures would appear to be below national average, and we're actually gutted that this year it went to centre assessed grades, because we were absolutely confident that we would go above national average. But it is very important to know what sits behind that figure. A good example, and if you've read our inspection report from 2 years ago, and not the one that we've had done most recently, which showed the school is back on a trajectory to be good or outstanding. But when that report said that we didn't challenge higher prior attaining students, we felt particularly aggrieved with that, because in the year that they looked at those results, we had 97 students who were labelled as high performing. For 87 of those students, we performed higher than national average. We had some really challenging Key Stage 2 results from a school, which indicates that we were the students were very, very high ability, when in fact on their arrival at the school they had below average reading ages, and their performance was actually good for them, but made it look like we were not performing. And it was only with 10 students, and interestingly, if we take our other feeder primary schools and the other 87 students, we were about a 10th to 20% of a grade better than the national average. So don't always read into what you see in those statistics, and I absolutely encourage anybody, if you've got a child with special needs, the chances are if you speak to somebody who's got a child with special needs in this school, they will give you a good story. There are some bad stories out there, and we don't shy from those. We know that some people want better from us, and we always strive to do that. But if you know somebody whose child is a high-performing student who's arrived and is a really good reader and has done well in primary school and expects them to do well and works hard, speak to some of those parents, because you will see that not just this year when it was centre assessed grades, but we have students that walk out of here with reams of top grades at GCSE. So I'm confident and proud of the achievement that we've got, but it doesn't make us allow us to just sit still and accept that that's good enough. We are always striving for quality assurance, to improve the quality of our teaching, to push our high-performing students even higher. And it is worth looking at some of the other statistics that are available, like destinations of students. Where do they move on to in their next steps? Have a look at how many go on to university when they come to the sixth forms. Have a look at how many go on to higher apprenticeships and employment. And that data is available, and that is something equally we are very, very proud of. So my view is there, yes, we sit around maybe slightly above national on some indicators. We are below on other indicators. But I think when I'm choosing a school, and it's quite interesting, the Youth Sport Trust today have released a survey that they've done, that 73% of schools, parents are looking at schools that do have an interest in well-being, because we do believe that our students do perform well because we look after them. Do your research, do go out there and look there, because it needs to be a best fit. It needs to be the right school for you, it needs to be particularly the child. And so I might be talking to a young person there right now who desperately wants to come to Streetly. It needs to be the right fit. You're very lucky, there are lots of great schools around this area, and they might be a better fit. But we believe that what we offer here is something which is equally, by comparison, and if not better, in a number of areas. Okay, next question. Do all children in the school have Chromebooks? That's a really easy one. Does anybody want to answer that? We'll all answer it together. Yes, every child has a Chromebook. We have a mixed economy of how we provide those. Some students buy their own with a higher spec one. Some students rent one with a deposit of £50, which lasts for 3 years. It may be a used Chromebook. It doesn't work any differently. And then some students, if they are eligible for pupil premium, they may be provided a Chromebook without that deposit. And then if any child turns up and they don't have a Chromebook, we loan them one because we need 100% coverage in lessons. So that's basically the way in which we ensure that every child has access to that online materials. That has always been helpful to us and has been central to our strategies for teaching and learning. But that has become absolutely the bedrock of our provision in lockdown. Now, we don't really know what's coming beyond, coming at us in the next few months, but certainly I'm very proud of the world-class provision that we had, because we were doing live lessons and we had a provision and a timetable and a curriculum provided to our students from the 24th of March after locking down on the 23rd of March. And that was very much commented on many of our parents, just how effectively we addressed that. That was made easier for us. And this is not about being negative about any other school. We're just lucky that we have that infrastructure that was already in place, which serves us well. Okay. How do you manage, next question, how do you manage students, how do you manage student to home communications? Is there a homework app, for example?
I'm happy to answer that. So every week we have a newsletter. So we have with information for all year groups. We also have a pastoral safeguarding newsletter that goes home. We also have Go for Schools, which now has an app. So you can either log in through your computer to look at your child's progress. We've also got our merits and our sanctions on there from this year. So you can keep an eye on their positives and maybe any sanctions that are being put in place. And we've launched that. It's been in our newsletter over the last few weeks. The one positive as well with our homeschool communication is every time that something happens in school as a positive, parents are informed via an email, and if it's a sanction that involves maybe closing the gap session or a communication, a conversation with a member of staff, then that's also logged, and parents are able to have that as an email as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add to that is that we run live mark books. So we have all of our mark books are online. Our teachers populate those every time they do an assessment or there's an exam or whatever it may be. And so we have absolute transparency for parents to be able to see how well their children are performing. And that, again, was hugely helpful when we found ourselves in a position of having to do centre assess grades, teacher level assessment, because it allowed us to look at the evidence, look at the history of a young person's performance in the previous year and a half or 2 years or 3 years or whatever it may be, and that helped us to formulate those arguments. And it actually meant that when we came to the appeals process, we had very few appeals against our grades that we offered. We did have some, but we had very strong evidence that sat in there that allowed us to say, look, this is how your child has been performing for this point. And that applies to all year groups, from year 7 all the way through, live mark books. So when the teacher puts the grade in, you get to see it at home. Okay, next question is from Laura. We've got a name for this one. Obviously, if their restrictions are lifted, will there be a chance for children to have a look around the school? I'd say yes to that. We normally run open days. The only problem I think that you have with that, if you're a year 5 parent, you're probably going to be okay, I would hope. If you're a year 6 parent, and I think the deadline for the applications is the end of October for your places at secondary school, I am totally doubtful, I'm 100% sure that we won't be taking visitors into the school during that time. I know some schools have done this. I've been in a meeting with Walsall Public Health today, and there is a view that cases are increasing rapidly in our community, both in Walsall and in Birmingham. And with that being the case, the chances of us expanding an offer out is hugely unlikely. Of course, when we find ourselves in the spring next year for year 5s, we'll start to address that and we'll think about whether we go into an open period or not. But it would be helpful if we could, but it might be something that this year group will lose out on, I'm afraid. Okay, next question. Currently on your live tour, so I think that's someone telling us they're currently on the live tour. How important is pupil reputation, behaviours and school brand to you when they are outside the school gates?
Yep.
Mr. Harris?
Thank you. Very important is the answer to that question. The reputation and behaviour of our students when they wear our tie and our badge. We wish it to be impeccable every day, but we are realists as well. We've got over 1,500 students at this school. I think if we could all say, as parents, as adults, we all made mistakes at some points, and we're aware that we do have the odd student that will let us down every now and again. And the key to that process is that we are a restorative practice school. Now, on the tour, please have a little look at the restorative practice aspect of it. So if any of our students do get it wrong and let us down when they're representing us outside in the community, then we will educate them about how they have got it wrong and the impact that it's had on themselves, us as a school, the community as a whole. So we will do work around that. You will see that the vast majority of our 1,500 students leave site, go home, look smart, act smart, and just represent us in a fantastic way. So that's the vast majority. You will also see, I go a walk at the end of school pretty much every day to the Queslit, not to the pub, Mr. Downey, just to let you know that, just down towards the Queslit to make sure that our students go home. Also go home safely. We are conscious that we have a very busy road just outside of our school by both gates. So not only are we looking at how they conduct themselves, but also their safety as well. And that's the same on Boundary. We go up to the Boundary shops and speak to the shopkeepers and have a good relationship with the community around us. So in answer to the question, yes, the conduct outside of the gates is very, very important to us, and anything that we can deal with that doesn't go right, we'll deal with in a restorative practice manner. Thank you.
Okay, next one's a very particular question to one parent, I would imagine. I don't know who it is, but it says, if your oldest child is removed and placed into another school by Streetly, would this affect my younger child getting a place? Now, that entirely depends. So we have some students who are on alternative provision but are still registered with Streetly. If they are still registered with Streetly, then the sibling ruling would still apply, unless, of course, the student is in year 11. Students in years 7 to 10. If we were, and this is not something we do very often, but if we were to permanently exclude a student, or if we were close to permanently excluding a student and we moved them to another school and then that worked and then they enrolled with that school, then the sibling ruling wouldn't apply. But if the younger child who's in year 6 or year 5 lives nearby or attends one of the feeder primary schools and the other criteria apply, then yes, they would still get a place. So it depends whether the older student is still on roll and the other criteria that we have if that is not the case. Okay, so that answers that question. Okay, next question. I'm going to go probably over to Mr. Hughes, which is what after school sports clubs do you have? How are they signed up for? And that's from Laura. And do you have a cricket team?
Wow, well, yes, we do have a cricket team, and we always have cricket clubs as well. The problem we have had with cricket is actually finding people to play against. So we do have a cricket club that runs every summer. Obviously, it depends on the season as to what clubs we offer, but generally, all your winter sports, we have football, cricket, rugby, and then for the girls, we've got things like netball. We also have fitness clubs, table tennis, trampolining. There's also a huge offer from our dance department. The list goes on, and really, we do listen to the students. If there's anything that students want to put on, we'll put it on for them. Badminton is another big sport for us here at Streetly, very popular. But we also have, from time to time, we have teams with bespoke teams, and so we might put together, say, a basketball team if the students request it. We've also got 2 paddle tennis courts. Paddle tennis is popular. Generally at lunchtime we have sort of recreational sports, and after school is more to do with excellence and pushing towards teams. But at the moment we have no extracurricular clubs, unfortunately, because of COVID. But we're looking forward to the day where we can open up all our clubs at lunchtimes and after school, because that's really central to our ethos and our identity. And I feel personally that we've lost a lot by not having our extracurricular provision in place. So really there's lots for everyone to do. We've got lots of facilities, and if we don't run it, just ask the teacher, and more than likely they'll say, yes, we'll try this next half term or whenever it may be.
Yeah, I've just been in discussion with the PE department today. I mean, I really want to get some form of competition, because I know I've got 2 daughters that play netball. One of the things that a lot of kids are really missing, football's back actually, which is not such a big issue, but is kids are missing competition and that sort of team thing. So I was just talking to some of the PE staff today about what we could do safely in the year bubbles to move towards a sort of in-school year competition, so that we can offer more of those opportunities. But I am really keen to get, even with COVID, as long as we can do it safely, to get extracurricular back on again. And the same goes for performing arts as well. You know, we're not allowed to have a choir at the moment because singing is banned as part of the guidance. We still have students doing music lessons, which are recommencing on the 1st of October. But we don't have our school production, which the last time we had was 160 students in it. We are looking at, because the problem with that is you're taking students from different year groups, then you're cross-contaminating the bubbles, and that's against the guidance. So we are desperate to get back to something, but we are seriously looking at. Next question is a long one. So could you please give a flavour of where pupils head after GCSE and A-level? How many GCSE students go on to remain at the school and study A-levels, and what percentage go on to study at university? And for those who might not be quite as academic, what they typically go on to do next. I don't have off the top of my head the exact percentages. What I do know is our sixth form this year. Can you leave that one on for us just for a moment, Mr. Pyatt, because there's a lot of sections of the question. So there are a big drive that we had was to increase the numbers in our sixth form. So we're now got our biggest sixth form that we've had for some time. Most of our students studying A-levels or level 3 BTECs. Our retention this year has sat around about 40 to 50%. A number of students go to colleges to do vocational courses that we can't offer. We have a growing number staying to do some of our sports courses that we now have on offer this year. But the retention is relatively good. We'd like it to be more, but we don't have a level 2 provision. And so a number of students go to college, whether that's Sutton, BMET or Walsall, to study courses there. What we do know is that our level of students that go on to actually make sure that they are engaged with educational training is very high and sits in the high 90% and sometimes 100. In terms of our percentages of students who go on to study at university, it's very high. And again, this data is available to you. And you can actually compare us with all the other providers locally. We're very proud that we send a lot of our students to red brick universities, to Russell Group universities, to go on to do, for example, in the last year, a number have been doing medicine, veterinary, dentistry, which obviously are the sort of the high-level courses. But at the same time, and this is something that we've grown our provision for, is that we've had 4 students this year who've gone on to prestigious level 4 apprenticeships, which are paid apprenticeships with university study alongside the workplace. Now we've done that through our excellent careers provision and making sure that those options are there for students when we give them that opportunity. Exact percentages is worth checking on the tables. I'd encourage you to do that, because the last time I did it and had a look, I saw that we were very favourable by comparison to pretty much all other providers locally, or certainly comparable, if not better. But I don't have the exact figures, but we're very proud. And the other thing is that on the results day for A-level, we always find something for our students. It's almost unheard of that someone doesn't get sorted through clearing. Our UCAS support program is exceptional. We have a number of staff in the sixth form that focus purely on getting students ready for their next steps. But again, that's something you could get more information on our sixth form open evening, which will be similar to this in a couple of weeks. Okay, our next question. When I did GCSEs, they were graded A, B, C. Can you please explain how GCSEs work now, as I don't understand the grading? Can you very quickly do that?
Yes, I'll do that. It is a bit confusing, I have to say. So basically, there are GCSEs, but there are also vocational courses as well, just to confuse things. So, as you said, it used to be A down to G. It is now 9 down to 1. So 1 being the lowest, and 4 is considered to be a pass, which used to be the old C grade, and 5 is a good pass, and that is the top end of an old C and the bottom 2/3 of a B. And then you go up, a 7 is equivalent of an A, an 8 was an A star, and 9 is an A star star. So a very small percentage, I think it's 1% nationally. However, just to confuse things, because of some of the vocational courses we do, we also have courses that have a level 1 grade and a level 2 grade. So a level 2 grade is anything above a grade 4, so it would be a level 2 pass, a level 2 merit, a level 2 distinction, and a level 2 distinction star. And then for grades 3 and below, it would be a level 1 pass, a level 2 pass, and a level 1 pass, level 1 merit, and a level 1 distinction. So I hope I haven't confused you too much, but that's basically it.
Again, there's plenty of information out there on government websites around grading. Okay, next question is from Lee, which is, what are your expectations surrounding student behaviour and how do you manage unacceptable behaviour? So I'll hand you to Mr. Harris.
We have very, very high expectations of student behaviour. That was, if you read our Ofsted reports and have a look at the behaviour, they went to 72 lessons over the time that they were here and didn't pick up any low-level disruption in any of those 72 lessons. So we take the behaviour very, very seriously, the conduct. We talk more about conduct rather than behaviour because we want to take the negative aspect of the word behaviour away and more positive conduct. We are, as I mentioned earlier, a restorative practice school. So when students get it wrong, we teach them maths and we mark their work to try and get them to get it right. We teach them English, we correct their mistakes and try to get them to get it right. If they get something wrong with their conduct, we try to educate them around that so it doesn't happen again. And we try to break the cycles and patterns of behaviour. So we are a restorative practice school, as I say, so we go down that route. But we will also use the punitive sanctioning systems if required. So your son, daughter will get a detention, for instance, if they are late to school. All of the small things, what some people might think are small things, all mount up to make good conduct. Okay, so if we need to move somebody on from our school, we will move somebody on from our school. There is no question about that. If they are not meeting the expectations that we have, then we will move people on. If people need to be dealt with in different ways, we will deal with them in different ways. But we do have those high expectations. We maintain those high expectations. We expect students to take ownership of their own behaviour as well, which is something we're pushing through at the moment. So to understand the impacts of their behaviours on themselves, people around them, and the whole school community. So yes, very high expectations, and I think that's proven on a day-to-day basis that the vast majority of our students behave impeccably. But it's also the soft things that we look at as well. So, for instance, standing and holding the door open for other students to come through. I like to stand on the front of G block where my office is, and the students come through, and it's just the little behaviour things, the little conduct things, like when they say good morning sir, and I can respond to them, ask them how the day is, they ask how the day is. It's those little subtle things as well that make this school such a great place to be around behaviour, conduct and that aspect of schooling.
There is a short section in my presentation where I present very transparently all of the parental questionnaires, and in reference to a couple of the questions that are on those questionnaires, there are questions around bullying, there are questions around conduct, there are questions around my child feels safe at school and they're happy at school. And I think you'll see when you see that section of the and you know, it's the data as it is. We never hide anything, and I think you can probably see from this presentation, we don't hide. This is either the right fit for you or it's not. We don't hide from what we are. We're a comprehensive school that tries to deal with all of the issues as they come to us and do things properly, do things right, do things with integrity. But you will see that our parents very much not only respect but appreciate what we do on an ongoing basis. And that leads us into the next question, actually, which is our policy on bullying and how we go about dealing with situations of this nature, reported and non-reported. And before I hand to Mr. Harris for how we deal with bullying, one of the questions that we get on the questionnaire is, my child knows who to go to if they have a problem, because that's an absolute key thing on dealing with bullying, which is there's someone I can talk to. And every year that comes out incredibly high, significantly higher than national average. And I mean sort of like 15% higher than national average, because we have a matrix of support that we build around students to make sure that they are happy, looked after and safeguarded. In terms of policy on bullying and how we deal with it, I'll go back. I think it's very much picked up already with restorative practice. But
yeah, I won't go back over the restorative side of things. But when we pick up any bullying issues, it is dealt with immediately. So it's not left to fester and to get any larger in its problem. We try and nip it in the bud straight away. So we will get students together. We will sit them together and have a restorative conversation with both parties there. We've done that with families, where we brought 2 different families in and sat and spoke about the problems. And like we say, we look at it as a bigger picture than just one person, another person. We also ask for your help as well. There's one thing that we really can't control when it comes to bullying, which is one of the biggest things at the moment, which is online bullying. So I think the latter part of the question, I think this leads into, where we will educate through our life curriculum. We will do lots of sessions around bullying. We will do lots of sessions on online safety to try and prevent it before it occurs. We are a telling school, so we've always got people that, as Mr. Downey alludes to, students can come and speak to. We're identified, the safeguarding team are identified, we wear a different coloured badge to the rest of the staff. So students can always find a member of our safeguarding team. And the safeguarding team have all got specialisms as well. There's 8 of us, we all pick up different specialisms as we go through. But the proactive side of preventing bullying is really important to us. So through our life curriculum, through assemblies, through the delivery of life curriculum days, we look at all the aspects of that, the outcomes that can lead from bullying and so on, so on. So it is very much an education to try and prevent. And then if we do have an incident, which is minimal, we don't have much at all, we're very lucky with it, but when we do, we act very fast and we act in our restorative practice manner to deal with the situation in hand.
Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Next question is from Sarah. I think it's a fairly quick response because I know we already do this in school. My son is partially deaf and has to wear bone-anchored hearing aids. At his primary school, he uses a radio aid, and I didn't get to finish reading that. He wears a radio aid. Will we be able to do that at Streetly? Was pretty much the question from Sarah.
And that's a yes. We have had experience of students with exactly the same thing. Quite often they have like a microphone on the lanyard that the student passes on to the member of staff at the start of the lesson and then takes it away with them to the next lesson. So yes.
Okay, next question. Our daughter's a keen swimmer, a keen club swimmer. Do children get regular access to the pool?
Yes. Apart from at the moment, obviously at the moment not, but it is part of the PE curriculum in Key Stage 3. We do have a swimming club and we do attend school galas, so yes we do. And the next question, my daughter has recently developed an interest in playing football. Yes, we definitely have a girls football team. I actually run the girls football, so yes, the training and matches, we're completely involved in all that as well.
Mr. Hughes has 2 daughters in the school, so who are both in the girls' football team. So I think there's probably a personal driver with that as well. Although he has always run the girls' football team. So the swimming's an interesting one. We may be opening our letting facilities in October, but we are taking public health guidance on that. The issue is changing. So at the moment, our students are coming to school in PE kit. Which obviously putting them into normally not very well ventilated changing rooms to get changed in a very confined area is not good and doesn't fit with the rest of our actions that we've taken on in terms of COVID measures. So that is one of our casualties at the moment, which is swimming, whereas the rest of the PE curriculum is actually in full operation right now. Okay, next question was, there is a mention of BTEC in the tour videos. What subjects do you do, please? Do you have apprenticeship links as well?
Okay, I'll answer that one. So we have 3 subjects in level 3, so equivalent of A levels, where we do BTEC. So that would be BTEC Business, and we do Applied Science, and we do ICT. But also BTEC now is wider in that a lot of other courses like Cambridge Nationals and YJEC courses, so for example hospitality and catering, travel and tourism, child development, health and social care, they're not the BTEC Pearson courses, but they are similar content, so they have they have coursework as well as an exam component. That is changing over the next year or so. They've delayed those changes because they want to try and change the coursework aspects. As at the minute, some of those you can have submissions and resubmissions, which is really helpful. In terms of apprenticeships, as I said, as Mr. Downey said earlier on, we've had 4 students. We have a big interest actually. We have Mrs. Phillips, our learning mentor in the 6th form. She has a lot of links. We have our careers advisor as well, who are able to guide people either a 6th form or after GCSEs.
Okay, our next question we have already covered, so I'm sort of, if people have been with us since the beginning, I don't really want to go over it again. It says, sorry if this has already been asked, how big is your catchment area and what are the other admission criteria? So the admission criteria is on the website. Just to clarify, there is no catchment area though. People always ask, what's your catchment area? A catchment area is a sort of drawing out of an area where we take students from. It is basically, the last criteria is distance, how far away you are. So you know, if you live, I mean, when I first started here back in 2010, we were taking students from up to 7 miles away. The lowest that's been is 0.84 miles. I think last year it was 1.3 miles in terms of distance from the school for distance criteria. If you didn't apply on the other ones, which was siblings, special needs, looked after children, children of staff, feeder primary is 2.5 miles. That covers basically everything. Okay, next question. I'm either going to ask Mr. Hughes or Mr. Harris to answer this one. Does the uniform policy allow for subtle highlights in my son's hair? Mr. Harris?
I'll answer it. The irony of that question. Yes, subtle highlights is fine. On our policy, we say that we don't have any extremes of hairstyles or colourings. So a natural subtle colour is fine and acceptable. But we don't accept, bright colours, unnatural colours, and also we don't accept like the shaving patterns in the side of the hair and things. So anything that's extreme, we don't accept. Subtle, natural colours, then that's fine. A little bit like my own at the moment.
Just on that one, the school has the final say on it. And we do find ourselves in some confrontation over those with parents occasionally. But ultimately, there has to be a line, and the school has to set it. It is. I'm a big believer. You know, if you think that you don't want your child to have their shirt tucked in and their top button done up and their tie the right length and not wear trainers, because for us it's fairly obvious what a shoe is. We have a standard on those that and an expectation, because we absolutely believe that orderly schools look after the little things and then the big things look after themselves. And one of those little things is hairstyles. And so I just really want to sort of emphasise that. If that's not your thing, then this might not be your school. If it is, and I believe in it, then this could be just the right place for you. Okay, I was wondering if the Year 9 options A, B, C and D are set in stone, or if there's any way some of the subjects could be juggled around to suit a particular student. I'm just going to very quickly say Year 9 for current Year 6 is a long way off. What subjects we offer at that point and how they're organised, we really couldn't project, because we haven't even done our options for next year's Year 9 with our current Year 8. We'll be doing that around Easter time, just before Easter. So it can be juggled around, but we do have to have those option areas, because it's about staffing them, really. Now, I would hand to Mr. Hughes, who does all of the timetable, but I think they're probably answered there. Next question. I'm probably going to wind us up in a few minutes with the last few. It was mentioned the school is on a busy road. If the child used a council minibus service due to the distance, would the minibus be able to load the children with in the school grounds, or would they load on the busy road? Our child has a full-time EHCP and place due to disabilities. Would the teacher or TA supervise to and from a minibus into the school in the mornings and after school to see them onto the minibus? We've had students. So yes. I mean, the straightforward answer to that is yes. Our students that are loaded onto minibuses, it's done literally right outside the main entrance of the school, not out on the road, but when you actually come down onto the car park, we've got a disability parking space there. And we load. So we've had up to 20 students at any one time, with students with wheelchairs or walking aids, and we have a special pickup service for them at the front of the school. And when we do allow those parents, they're the only parents where there is a disability or in particular areas where we would allow parents to come onto the site to collect students in their cars. We don't allow parents normally to come onto the school site just for the health and safety.
And just to say as well, maybe they are supervised by a TA. There is a member of staff there with them, and they wait until the minibus either arrives in the morning or it leaves in the afternoon.
Very specific question to Mr. Hughes. A quick point to Mr. Hughes. Did he actually say rugby and cricket was for boys and netball for girls?
No.
No.
No, I didn't. I just said that our teams that we have at the minute, we don't have a girls rugby team, we don't have a girls cricket team, but it doesn't mean that girls are excluded from any sport whatsoever, and boys the opposite way around. We don't have a boys netball team. It's just the way that the leagues are set up. But actually, all of our sports are open to boys and girls. We're absolutely clear about that. But it's just the way the competitions are set up at the moment. There isn't a girls rugby team. No, there isn't a girls cricket team, but they'd be absolutely more than welcome to attend the clubs within the school, our own clubs. There's no problem at all.
And the other thing is we do have good links with other clubs outside of school as well. So, you know, if it was something that they weren't into already, that we could try and facilitate with that. There is a demand issue on some of those sports. We're quite interested. We've just built a Fast 5 netball court. It's the only one of its kind in the region, actually. And one of the reasons we did it is we thought that it may encourage boys to play netball because there are various elements that make it a little bit more like basketball. But you know, that's one at the moment. You know, boys tend to play basketball if they want to do a similar sort of sport to it. Last question, if you don't get a place, can you appeal? Yes, of course. There is an appeals process that opens immediately after places are allocated in March, April. We normally hear our appeals in May, June, an independent appeals panel, which is an opportunity for someone who doesn't get a place through the normal admissions criteria, who doesn't get a place, but then wants to still apply. So yes, of course. And we allow anyone to apply. You can only apply once in any school year, but we've never told anybody you can't appeal. You can appeal at any time, but you just can only do it once in one academic year. Do you still do dual award science GCSE as I did in 1992 at Streetly, or do the children study the 3 individual subjects?
The vast majority of students do combined science, and we have a foundation and higher level where we have a certain number of students who are able to do triple science as well, and obviously their grades in year 9 will determine as to which course the science department advise them to take.
Okay, and that question was from Norma, just because she'd put her name on it. So, just wondering if we've got any more questions? No? Okay, that's perfect timing because it's just taken us past 8 o'clock. Okay, so boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. This has worked apart from our little technical glitch at the beginning, and it has lasted almost bang on an hour. We thank you for engaging with us this evening. There will be a recording of this that will go onto our YouTube channel, so if anybody wants to watch anything back, if anybody wants to pick anything up with us, of course, email into the school. We'll try and get back to you. But I just thank you for joining us. I hope we haven't bored you or that you found it useful. And I go back to that point. We try and be as transparent as possible about what we are, who we are, and how we do what we do. There was one last question. I'm just going to read it. It says, from his demeanour, does Mr. Hughes come from an ex-service or security background? The answer to that is no. But thank you for a slightly more light-hearted moment to end us on. Do have a look around. Again, a big shout out to our IT guys who have done a fantastic job. We had companies approaching us to create tours, charging us thousands of pounds, up to £5,000 for one of them, to do a professional business of doing virtual tours around the school. Our IT team in school, who are incredibly talented, have done everything that you see on our virtual tour. So I just want to give a shout out to the IT lads who have all done that, and of course also to the people who have been here this evening. So behind the camera and the stream we've got Mr. Link, so I want to thank Mr. Link, and then our moderator on the questions and putting the questions up for us was Mr. Pyatt, Assistant Head Teacher, Teaching and Learning and Technologies in school. So finally, just thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for your interest in the Streetly Academy. Go back to the thing that I said at the beginning: if this is the right school for you, we will do everything we can to make sure that if you join us in that partnership as we go forward, we make it a successful one. Thank you again. Do have a look around, and hopefully if you're a Year 5 student, maybe next year we'll actually have you here in the building and you can meet our amazing students, because that's the bit that you've really lost out on. Young people get a bad press sometimes, but when people come in and see just kids doing the very best that they can, it always impresses them, and it's a shame that you've been denied that this evening. This will pass. We will get back to normality at some point, and we look forward to you joining us maybe next year. Thanks very much. We're going to end the stream there, and enjoy the rest of your evening, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you. Good night.